The big game is finally here. Super Bowl 59. A rematch of epic proportions. In one corner, let's call it the red corner, the reigning, defending, back-to-back Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes chasing the ghost of Tom Brady. Andy Reid trying to claim the title of the greatest coach of all time against his former franchise. And Travis Kelce, he's had all the headlines because he's the boyfriend of the biggest pop star in the world. But he wants to go out in style. Yes, that is a Taylor Swift reference. In the green corner, we have the fighting Philadelphia Eagles. The city of brotherly love. The city of the most rambunctious, most savage, most absolutely jabroni-filled fan base on God's green earth. But at the same time, Philadelphia is home of Rocky Balboa, the ultimate underdog. And just as Rocky Balboa in the rematch took down Apollo Creed with the body shots, Saquon Barkley is looking to do the very same. Jalen Hurts is looking to revenge and avenge his loss in Super Bowl 57 after not one, not two, not three, but 4 touchdowns in that game. But all he's remembered for is a fumble. So Super Bowl 59 is the reigning, defending, three-peat potential Kansas City Chiefs. And the city of the underdog, the team that once before did halt a three-peat. Whether it was in the middle or at the end, they did it. The Eagles are looking to do it again. Welcome to the Bottom Line View. Welcome to your Super Bowl in-depth breakdown of the Chiefs and the Eagles. Super Bowl 59. Gronk, spike the like button unless you're a jabroni. Don't be a jabroni and Gronk spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for NFL Super Bowl previews just like this. Plenty of content already regarding the Super Bowl on the channel, and also the off-season content on the BLV is better than ever. It's better than any channel on the internet, and this preview will be more in-depth than any preview you will watch or witness. So get ready. Get your popcorn, get your favorite beverage, sit back, relax, let's have a good time. Make sure to share this video with all your jabroni friends. Even if you're a Swiftie like Cassie, share it to the Swifties, share it to the Eagles fans, share it to everybody, all right? Let's go. Eagles, Chiefs. Let's start it off with this. This game marks the 8th time that a Super Bowl has been played in the Superdome. And shout out to the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, as he won his first Super Bowl in the Superdome, and also will be commentating his first Super Bowl at the Superdome. Now, this venue has been very popular over the years. This venue of New Orleans has seen more Super Bowls than any city other than Miami. So, pretty interesting. We got another Super Bowl in New Orleans. Of course, we have Kendrick Lamar at halftime. Let me know what your favorite Kendrick Lamar song is in the comments section as well. The Kansas City Chiefs are on an epic streak of winning 17 games. 17 straight one-score games. So if this game is close, you probably should be betting on the Chiefs. Historically speaking, yes. Is it due to regress at one point? Yes, absolutely. But the way that they are pulling off these games, if it's close, the Chiefs should win. The Eagles have not allowed a team in the NFL to score 23 plus points, more than 23 points, since October. So this game could be defensive, potentially. Okay? Saquon, the greatest player in the NFL today, turns 28 on the Super Bowl. His initials are Super Bowl SB Saquon Barkley. He could be the first running back to win Super Bowl MVP since Terrell Davis in 1998. And you know whose record he's looking to pass with 30 rushing yards? Terrell Davis. Just saying. Okay? These teams are meeting for the 4th season in a row, which is the first AFC-NFC matchup to meet 4 seasons in a row in the history of the NFL. It's never happened before. They have played 4 seasons in a row. So there's plenty of familiarity between these coaches, these staffs, these players, and there is a bit of a rivalry in this game. The winner of the first Super Bowl, considering that this is a rematch, has won the second game, the second rematch, so to speak, every single time within a 10-year span. So every single time, whether it be Giants, Patriots, whether it be Niners, Chiefs, whether it be Cowboys, Steelers, okay? Every single time there's been a rematch, the team that won the first one won the second one. Those are a little bit, just to get you a little bit cooking here, just to start off, before we get to the nitty and the gritty and the X's and the O's, okay? Just a couple little pieces of information there. In terms of injuries, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens for the Eagles on the offensive line are dealing with injuries. They should be fine and ready to play, okay? Jalen Carter also has a little bit of a sickness, should be fine, should be ready to play. Brandon Graham, who has not played for the Eagles in quite some time, is also looking like he will be playing in this game. I'm not sure how much, but he'll play some small rotation role on their defensive line. The Chiefs have everybody except for, of course, Rashee Rice. Pretty much everybody on their team is available to play, okay? Now, the total is sitting at 57.5. Or sorry, 58.5, I believe. Or 48.5. I'm drunk, bro. 48.5, not 58.5. The total is at 48.5. The spread is at 1, okay? Kansas City -1. Maybe 1.5, depending on where you're betting. So it could be 1.5, it could be 1. Just my little bit of information there in terms of the spread and the total. I think that the spread could only move up. I could see the total moving up in terms of going up to 49 or 49.5. I don't think it will go dip under 48. I don't think it will get to 47.5, 47. Typically in these Super Bowls, the public is looking to bet points. They're looking to bet the over, right? They want to see a lot of points scored. The number came out around 49.5, 49, okay? And it has dipped to 48.5. So people, the sharps, so to speak, have been betting the under 49.5, under 49 to 48.5, okay? Now the spread is at -1, -1.5. I think that the spread could actually get closer to Philly's side before kickoff, because I think a lot of the public will probably be betting the Chiefs, but I think there will be a fair amount of public that's also betting the Eagles as well. But I think that there's going to be a lot of people that back the numbers, and the numbers would suggest that the Eagles are the better team. So I think that a lot of the sharps will be on the Eagles. So I would suspect that the number would maybe get closer to a pick'em rather than to 2 in this game. But that's just my opinion, okay? So let's take a look at the tail of the tape before we get to the Eagles offense versus the Chiefs defense. These two teams, in terms of DVOA, the Eagles were seen as the third best team in the NFL this year, while the Chiefs ranked 6th. This is updated through the playoffs, by the way. EPA for the offense, 8th for Kansas City, 6th for the Eagles. Defensively, the Chiefs 18th EPA defensively, and the Eagles 2nd. Now, in terms of points for and points against, the Chiefs defense ranks much better than their EPA at 4th compared to 18th, but their offense is middling at 15th overall. The Eagles, meanwhile, had a top 7 offense and a top 7 defense in points for and points against. Points for, 7th. Points against, 2nd. So the Eagles, statistically, in terms of offense, defense, overall grading, did not rank anywhere lower than 7th across the board, while the Chiefs did show a little bit more weakness in both their offense and their defense from a statistical perspective, okay? So let's begin with the Eagles offense versus the Chiefs defense. Everything in this game begins with Saquon Barkley. If the Eagles are going to win this game, it's because they outpossess the Chiefs. They have more plays than the Chiefs. They run the ball. They have early down success running the football, and they're able to milk the clock later in the game when they have the lead. And they're able to gain the lead and sustain the lead throughout the game and not allow the Chiefs to come back like they have in so many Super Bowls. One of the key ingredients to understand about the Chiefs in Super Bowls is that they have trailed or been tied at every single halftime of the Super Bowl. They were destroyed by Tampa Bay. I believe they were tied by the 49ers in the first Super Bowl. They were trailing last Super Bowl against San Francisco. They were trailing by, I think, multiple scores against the Eagles in the first Super Bowl. When we look back at the first Super Bowl, okay, because this is a rematch, it was 38-35. Of course, the Eagles gave up a 10-point lead, a 10-point halftime deficit. So they're leading by multiple scores, as I said. And Harrison Butker hit the game winner after a Juju Smith-Schuster pass interference call, a lot of Chief controversy with the refs once again that allowed the Eagles to lose and the Chiefs to win. Okay, the Eagles did follow that up in 2023 with a victory in the regular season matchup, 21-17. All right, so last time it was 38-35. I would overall not suspect that game to play as high scoring this time around as it did last time. But going back to the Eagles offense and the Chiefs defense and the overall Saquon Barkley, okay? Saquon's the key to the game. Saquon, if the Eagles win, will win MVP in my opinion. Jalen Hurts can win MVP and we'll get into how, but I think that Saquon has a clear path to doing so because he has rushed 100 yards or more in 9 out of his last 10 games. And when you counteract that or compare that to Kansas City's run defense since week 10 has been on the decline. In EPA allowed per rush, they are 19th in the NFL since week 10. They are also 21st in the NFL in success rate in their run defense. So Saquon, the best rusher in football versus the Chiefs run defense that has been struggling as of late. Okay, guys? Now, back in Super Bowl 57, the Eagles had an awesome, dominant rushing attack that was very much based on the strength of their offensive line. Miles Sanders had 7 carries for only 16 yards in that game, 2.3 yards per carry. Spagnuolo's game plan was to take away Miles Sanders, take away Jalen Hurts, and the threat of the run for the Eagles, and forcing everything on Hurts to win by throwing the football from the pocket and throwing the ball down the field. Okay, that was the entire game plan for Spagnuolo. And as we've already mentioned, yeah, the Eagles scored 35 points by doing that. And Jalen Hurts had a huge game. He had 350 yards in the game, I believe, through the air, okay? Now, last season when they played, DeAndre Swift did have more success, 12 carries for 76 yards and a touchdown, if that matters to you at all. But just goes to show that perhaps they'd be able to run the ball a bit better. And if you even look at the talent of the running backs, Miles Sanders compared to Saquon Barkley, a pretty big difference in my opinion, as Sanders immediately fell off as soon as he left the Philadelphia Eagles team. Now, something interesting about the Chiefs is, yes, they have been struggling as of late, but historically in the playoffs, they have not allowed a 100-yard rusher in any of their last 18 playoff games dating back to 2019. So since they became a dynasty, they have not allowed a 100-yard rusher in the playoffs. And a lot of that is due to Steve Spagnuolo, his scheme, his ability to one individual game, take away a dominant rushing attack, take away a dominant rusher, including Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry over those matchups and over those years, okay? The Chiefs also have not allowed any player to rush for 100 yards or more since week 1. Lamar Jackson actually rushed for 100 yards in that game, I believe, not Derrick Henry. So a running back has not rushed for 100 yards this season against Kansas City. Although, when you look at the last 2 games, James Cook averaged 6.5 yards per carry, and he totaled 88 yards. The Bills on the ground had 147 in total. Against Joe Mixon, he also had 4.9 yards per carry, 85 total yards, and 149 yards. Now, I think some of that for Cook was based on Joe Brady just not giving him the ball enough. For Mixon, I think it had more to do with the game state and the game flow, being that the Texans were trailing for a majority of the game, so they weren't really able to run the ball. Okay, but that is a key, obvious key to the game in terms of, can Saquon run it? I think in order for them to stop Saquon, they're going to have to pack the box like they did in Super Bowl 57. I think that you're going to see 3 linebackers out on the field fairly often, with Leo Chenal being the 3rd linebacker, rather off the line or on the line of scrimmage, as a stack linebacker or as an edge player. Now, Leo Chenal is important. He's been important in the game plans against Christian McCaffrey and the Eagles in the previous seasons. He actually had a really good game in both of those games, the past 2 Super Bowls. He doesn't play a ton of snaps, but every single time they play a run-heavy team, he is heavily involved in stopping the run. One way that the Eagles can ensure that Leo Chenal is not as involved in this game is by using more 3 wide receiver sets as opposed to 2 wide receiver sets. When you look at the Chiefs defensively, and oftentimes when they like to play their base personnel, it's usually against 2 tight ends. But even in that game against Philly, they almost treated Dallas Goedert in a disrespectful fashion in Super Bowl 57, having him lined up against guys like Nick Bolton or a linebacker like with regularity, Willie Gay, and they asked that linebacker to try to cover Dallas Goedert, one of the most talented tight ends in the league. So that's where a potential mismatch could come in if Spagnuolo does decide to overcommit to the run. And I saw many times just taking screen captures of like 8 or 9 players in the box at times for the Chiefs against the Eagles in Super Bowl 57. Again, trying to ensure that Sanders and the Eagles and Jalen Hurts could not keep the ball and run the ball, but instead they would have to throw it because of the amount of people in the box. It's a similar game plan we've seen for Spagnuolo against Lamar Jackson in the past, where they forced the Ravens to have to throw the ball down the field to beat them. With McCaffrey and the Niners, it was a little bit different. I think the Eagles and the Niners are a different breed because the Niners are more schematically based with their running game, more so than just pure talent, where the offensive line of the Eagles, they run like 4 or 5 plays, but they're just insanely good at them because their offensive line is freakish and one of the greatest we've ever seen. So it's just hard to defend that at times. No matter what you do schematically, they're just so dominant up front. Now, players like Wharton, Pennell, and Nandi are going to have to be names that you're familiar with when watching the Super Bowl if you want to get into the weeds. These are defensive tackles for the Chiefs that will all have to rotate and defend the run. Wharton has been the guy that started alongside Chris Jones for much of the season. Pennell has been one of the bigger contributors in run-heavy scripts in the past for the Chiefs, and Derek Nandi is also a contributor as well. Nick Bolton is going to be playing pretty much every snap. I'm sure Drew Tranquil will see a little bit of action in terms of that second linebacker, both in their nickel sets, but also in their base packages. And then another player that's really important that we'll touch on a little bit later is Connor, their nickel back, who is kind of like a big corner or a big safety who plays as their nickel. He's not the greatest in coverage, which we'll get to, but he's also a good run defender, a good tackler, and a good blitzer, which is key to their run defense. So I could see them playing a lot of traditional like 4-3 formations on early downs, 4-3 under type of formation vibes from the Chiefs to be able to stop Saquon Barkley and to make Jalen Hurts throw the ball. I don't know how successful that will be, though, because we've seen teams stack the box against the Eagles like the Rams, and they have not been able to accomplish that feat, right? They have been able to stack the box and maybe occasionally get a stop, but they've also allowed a lot of big gains because once you get past that initial line, if you're able to break past that initial line, Saquon is just faster than everybody on the field and takes it to the house. So there could be explosives, but what Spagnuolo is aiming to do is to create negative runs, to create no gains, and to force the Eagles into second and longs, third and longs, and in situations where he can have his positive advantage, which is blitz packages against Jalen Hurts, which we'll also touch on more often, okay, later on. But another interesting stat is that Saquon Barkley averages 2 yards per carry more in the second half of games this season, and he is forcing a tackle to be missed at a 9% higher rate in the second half. The Chiefs, though, do have the lowest missed tackle rate in the NFL, so that comes in handy for the Chiefs, their ability to tackle and get Saquon down. So pay attention to that. As the game wears on, if the Eagles are having success running the ball and possessing the ball, the more the Chiefs are going to wear down, and the more eventually that Saquon's going to pick up more and more yardage, okay? Which is why this might be the most challenging Super Bowl that the Chiefs have ever had in terms of being able to come back. If the Chiefs actually fall behind, this might be the most difficult Super Bowl for them to come back because of the combination of Saquon and the combination of Hurts running the ball and the combination of the defense of the Eagles, which is one of the more talented that we've seen the Chiefs face in a Super Bowl, okay? Combined with, and we'll get to your super chats, guys, thank you so much. Combined with the Chiefs' inability to really slow down running backs as of late, they've struggled against quarterbacks running as well. They've allowed 4 straight quarterbacks to rush for 39 yards or more, Allen included, CJ Stroud included. They have not been great against quarterbacks running as of late, okay? And a key ingredient to the Eagles running the ball is their tight end, Dallas Goedert. On plays that Dallas Goedert is on the field, they rush for 6.3 yards per carry. When he is not on the field, they rush for under 5 yards per carry at 4.9. When they rush towards Dallas Goedert, the strong side, they go for 5.8 yards per carry, while when they go to the opposite side, it's only 2.9. So Dallas Goedert is a key to this game as a blocker and a receiver, and in the games where Goedert was not active, it definitely showed up in the ability for the Eagles to run the ball a little bit. So he is a key part of this game as a mismatch in the run and the pass game because he's such a good blocker, but also a talented receiver. Okay, so Goedert, one of the more underrated players in the NFL, very, very, very useful in this Super Bowl. Let's just take a quick break for the Super Chats. Shout out to Bodo first, $50 with the RKO. Shout out to Bodo, my man, in the chat. Thank you to the legend himself. And we also have Big Al, who says, Eagles 27, Chiefs 24, Philly wins and covers, Saquon wins Super Bowl MVP. Thank you so much, man, for the $25. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it, bro. Thank you for the $25, a Big Al. Thank you for the 50, Bodo. Thank you guys for tuning in and Gronk spiking the like button. We're just getting into the weeds here of the Eagles offense versus the Chiefs defense. And as I do mention that, let's just take a quick look at the statistics in terms of the Eagles offense against the Chiefs defense as we continue to dive into this matchup. So the Eagles, they are 10th in yards per play offensively, while the Chiefs defense is 12th. Rush EPA, the Eagles are first, while the Chiefs are 15th. The Eagles' passing EPA is 7th, and the Chiefs are 16th. And the Eagles have the 8th points per drive offensively, while the Chiefs are 13th. Statistically speaking, the advantage lies with the Eagles' offense against the Chiefs' defense. The Chiefs are a big defense in terms of big game defense. They are a great defense in big games over the past couple of years because of their coaching, because of some of their individual talents like Chris Jones, because of guys like Trent McDuffie, because of their hybrid nature of their defense, their ability to stop the pass or the run, their ability to be scheme diverse. They are very good in big games. That being said, it's hard to be great and shut down an offense that is this talented when we look at it player for player for player, which is why we'll continue to dive into why the Eagles do have advantages on this side of the ball, but it wouldn't be crazy for the Chiefs to have one particular avenue to slowing down the Eagles, okay? So let's dive into Dallas Goedert. He's going to be a big player in this game, and I would look to bet some of Dallas Goedert's props if I were a betting man, which you guys know I am. The Kansas City Chiefs allowed the most yards to tight ends this season, over 1,100 yards, nearly 1,200 yards. They also allowed the fourth most catches to the position among all NFL teams. Dallas Goedert himself had 85 yards against the Washington Commanders, and he also led the Eagles in receiving in the divisional round against the Rams, okay? A lot of teams have been targeting Connor, Reed, Cook at that safety position, and anytime a linebacker is one-on-one, a lot of teams will be targeting that. We saw the Texans with Dalton Schultz target that quite a bit, especially with the lack of receiver options that they did have outside of Nico Collins. Okay, in Super Bowl 57, I kind of felt like the guy had 100 to 125 yards in that game just based on watching it. When I remember it, it felt like he had a massive game, right? But he only had 6 catches. 6 catches is still quite a lot, especially for Goedert, who averages about 4 in his career. But 6 catches on 7 targets for 60 yards. Still a pretty darn good game for him, but he was only the 3rd leading receiver for the Eagles in that Super Bowl. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both had more yards than he did. But Goedert will be involved in terms of play action. He'll be involved in terms of the run game. He'll be involved in terms of the one-on-ones, especially if the Chiefs look to play more base personnel to stop Saquon Barkley. He will be the biggest mismatch. He will be involved in terms of RPOs. They've gotten him very involved in releasing to the flats and getting the ball out quick for Jalen Hurts. He is that guy that often is getting that ball and going for yards after catch in those situations. One interesting stat for Goedert is that he is the best tight end in the NFL against man coverage. In yards per route run, he had 3.6 yards per route run, which was the best in the NFL against man coverage. So when the Chiefs look to play their 2-man coverage, 2 safeties deep, man underneath, that is what they do a lot of the time, or they like to play cover 2 blitz or cover 2 zone. They like to play a lot of cover 2. Goedert will beat man coverage consistently. I think there'll be another receiver that they look to when they play a lot of zone, but that's the guy that I think consistently they will look to feature as their man coverage beater in the game. Now, so that's for Dallas Goedert. When we're looking at the rest of the weapons, A.J. Brown against man coverage was the best receiver in the NFL against man coverage this season at 4.04 yards per route run. So when the Chiefs play man coverage, which honestly, they probably will sometimes on early downs and occasionally on 3rd and long to blitz, but it probably is not the best formula. Why? Because Hurts can run, so you have to deal with containing Jalen Hurts in the pocket. 2, you have to cover Dallas Goedert with a safety or a linebacker, and we now know that he's the best tight end against man coverage in the NFL. You have to cover A.J. Brown. Are you going to do that with Jalen Watson and a safety over the top? Okay, if you do that, then Devontae Smith's one-on-one. If you do that, then Dallas Goedert's one-on-one. Do you put Trent McDuffie on Devontae Smith? Do you put Trent McDuffie on A.J. Brown? So there will be decisions made by Steve Spagnuolo if you play man coverage. I think more often than not, we'll see McDuffie on A.J. Brown because McDuffie played 98% of his snaps in the playoffs on the outside of the formation and not in the nickel spot. And Devontae Smith played a lot more snaps in the slot, okay? Kansas City also doesn't only play man quite a bit. They like to mix their stuff, but like I said, a lot of cover 2 variations. They like to press a lot. So they press at a 52% rate, which is the most in the NFL. Why that's important is because A.J. Brown is the best receiver in the NFL against press. This is not subjective. This is objective. Statistically, he is the best receiver against press. In Super Bowl 57, he beat press coverage for 5 catches for 92 yards, and I believe a touchdown against Trent McDuffie, where he mossed him in the end zone. So that's a matchup to watch. A.J. Brown against man, whether it be McDuffie or not, he should feast in this game if the Chiefs do decide to play man. When they play zone, I think that will be when they look to like double A.J. Brown, try to take him out. Maybe occasionally they'll look to put McDuffie on Smith, put Watson on A.J. Brown, put a safety over top A.J. Brown, try to take him out when they play man and take their chances with Dallas Goedert. That might be the way they go as well. That might be the smartest. It just takes the variations of the blitzes and the number of players you can put in your blitz packages. If you double a receiver, it takes away your ability to do a lot of other things, right? Now, another matchup that I think favors the Eagles is Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith has played quite a few snaps in the slot this year. He played 54.9% of his slot snaps, so snaps in the slot, and 68% in the conference championship. So just last time they played, he had nearly 69% of his snaps in the slot in the conference championship. Why that's important is because the Chiefs' slot corner, Connor, has allowed the third highest completion percentage in the NFL this year. He is not very good in coverage. Like I mentioned, he's good at blitzing. He's good at stopping the run. He will be important for the Chiefs to stop Saquon, which is their number one goal. Because as we mentioned, Saquon has 9 out of his last 10 games with 100 yards. Saquon is their best player. Saquon is the feature of the offense. Saquon is arguably the best player in the NFL. So the Chiefs are going to try to stop Saquon first and foremost. But now you have a trickle-down effect of having to deal with A.J. Brown, having to deal with Dallas Goedert, and Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith doesn't catch a lot of passes. He's been held under 4.5 receptions in 7 out of his last 10 games. But against the Chiefs, he has a 99-yard game and a 100-yard game in the past 2 seasons. So he's had big games the last 2 times he's played the Chiefs. Last time they played the Chiefs, A.J. Brown did next to nothing. And really, the offense struggled quite a bit, but they still won the game. Devontae Smith was the best player in the game, along with Dallas Goedert, as expected. Devontae Smith is much better against zone than man, though. He is the 15th best receiver in yards per route run against zone than man, where he's like more middling. Still a good player, but not as good. So the player that they might feature in zone is Devontae Smith, especially because he's over the middle of the field, and he'll be, they'll probably be shifting their attention towards A.J. Brown when they play a lot of zone and they look to blitz. Devontae could be that option to be open against zone, okay? I actually think Devontae Smith has a chance to lead this game in receiving yards because I think he will be the guy that the Chiefs most likely are going to allow to play more one-on-one, and I think that they'll put less attention on him than A.J. Brown. I also think that, like I said, Dallas Goedert has a good matchup himself, but kind of everybody knows that at this point, it feels like. Now, an interesting thing when it comes to the wide receiver position in particular against Kansas City is that the Chiefs' defense has not played an offense with 2 great receivers all year. When you really look at their schedule, the closest that they came to playing a team with 2 really good receivers was the Texans. And that was for 3 quarters, right? Like Nico Collins and Tank Dell. And Tank Dell is not great. He's not Devontae Smith. He's good. He's not Devontae Smith, right? Nico Collins, A.J. Brown, fairly similar level, right? I would say. They're probably like the 4th and 5th best receiver in the league or something like that. 3rd and 4th or 3rd and 5th or whatever you want to say, right? But when you look at the schedule for the Chiefs, Tampa Bay, when they played Tampa Bay, they didn't have Mike Evans. They didn't have Chris Godwin. When they played San Francisco, they didn't have Debo, and Ayuk got hurt very early in the game. When they played Cincinnati, T. Higgins didn't play. When they played the Bills, well, they don't have any receivers anyways. When they played the Ravens, well, they only really have Zay Flowers. That was week 1 as well. When you go down the schedule, I mean, they really have not played a team with 2 receivers as good as A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and you could check that for yourself if you want. And then you throw in the third option of Dallas Goedert, which makes it more interesting. So I know that we're circling back here to the fact that the Chiefs moved on from L'Jarius Sneed this offseason, and it has not really burnt them until potentially now. Will Jalen Watson step up? Will Connor be the right guy in the nickel spot? Because what made the Chiefs secondary so good last year was the fact that they didn't have a weakness at the cornerback position. You could put McDuffie at the nickel spot because you had Sneed on the outside and you had Watson on the outside. And then behind that, you had Williams who could play on the outside, right? But now you've got this kind of trickle-down effect of where our safeties aren't playing as good. Justin Reed has declined. Connor is at our nickel spot. McDuffie now has to play on the 1 instead of the 2. Now McDuffie as a nickel is taken away from that spot and he's playing on the outside. So there's that effect that could be kind of forced by the Eagles here, especially considering how dominant their run game is to open up things for their passing game, okay? But the key to the game on offense beyond just Saquon Barkley is Jalen Hurts' ability to anticipate the blitz, his answers for the blitz, his ability to hang in against pressure, and his ability to play against Spagnuolo. Okay? Can Spags confuse Jalen Hurts? Because when you look at it from an individual player perspective, the Chiefs are outgunned. They're outgunned on the perimeter. They're outgunned on the offensive line. They're outgunned at tight end. The best chance for the Chiefs is their coaching and their ability to create negatives, to force blitzes, to be able to get pressure on Hurts and force the weakness of the Eagles to beat them, which is Jalen Hurts' brain. Okay? Hurts versus the blitz. This season was actually his best regular season against the blitz in his career, okay? He has traditionally, though, struggled against the blitz, okay? And against pressure in particular, he is really bad. When you compare Jalen Hurts when he is clean to when he is pressured, he is a totally different player. When Jalen Hurts is pressured, he is the worst quarterback in the league in success rate and EPA per attempt. He is also 33rd out of 37 in sack rate and 32nd out of 37 in yards per attempt. Okay? So the splits when pressured and when clean are insane. The thing is, though, that the Chiefs do not get a lot of pressure with a four-man rush. And against the Eagles, it's going to be very hard for them to get pressure with a four-man rush. So in order to get pressure, they're going to have to blitz. In fact, the Chiefs only rank 30th in EPA per pass play when they don't blitz this season, which is third last, guys. They're bad when they only send 4. They're probably the best blitzing team in the NFL, okay? Some interesting things about Hurts and the Eagles, though, is that the Eagles are 9-0 when Jalen Hurts passes for 200 yards this season. They're 9-0 when Hurts has 200 yards. Hurts also has the most yards in his regular season career against the Chiefs, 387. And in his postseason career with 304. Both games were against the Chiefs. So I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because Spagnuolo just flat out disrespects Jalen Hurts more than 99% of defensive coordinators in the NFL. Basically allowing the passing game to become easier for him to accomplish because he's selling out to stop the run because their offensive line has always been the main ingredient to their success. But for whatever reason, Jalen Hurts has had a ton of success throwing the ball against the Chiefs, okay? Just statistically speaking. That being said, if for some reason, like Chris Jones, I think Chris Jones is going to play a lot on the inside because I don't think you want him to play on the outside. He is the only defensive lineman in the NFL this year to have 30 pressures as an edge player and an interior player. I would expect him to play on the interior because Landon Dickerson and Mekhi Becton and Cam Jurgens, although still very good, are not as good as Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, who are pretty much not going to be beat by anybody in the league more than once in a game. Okay, Mike Dana and George Karlaftis probably will be stonewalled for much of the game. I would expect a little bit of Mike Dana from the interior on passing downs. I could see an impact being made by him with his quickness on the inside. Some ways that the Eagles can avoid the Chiefs beyond just the Chiefs blitzing and getting pressure on Hurts beyond just running the ball is they could use some no huddle after they get a first down. They oftentimes do no huddle, and they can use that no huddle to be able to throw off the play calling and the situating of the defense by Spagnuolo so that the defense remains vanilla and simple. Another way that they could do this is by using play action. The Chiefs are 28th against play action this year, while Jalen Hurts has 116 passer rating using play action. So I would expect on early downs, a little bit of play action from the Eagles, especially early in the game with how much the Chiefs are going to be selling out to stop Saquon and get that early stop. So I would expect a little bit of Hurts throwing the ball with RPOs and play action early in the game. And I would expect Kellen Moore to be somebody that makes or breaks the game for the Eagles. Does Kellen Moore come prepared with third down play calls? The ability to identify and have Hurts prepared to audible at the line of scrimmage and to be able to identify pressure. The red zone play calls. The ability to get 2-point conversions if you need it because Joe Brady wasn't ready. The ability to convert on fourth down beyond the tush push because Joe Brady wasn't ready, right? Spagnuolo won that matchup against Joe Brady. Does Kellen Moore come prepared with 2 weeks to prepare with some money plays in the big moments of the game, on third down, on fourth down, in the red zone. Obviously going to make or break. Now, Kellen Moore and the Eagles are not going to have to stem too far from what they are because their talent is so magnificent. They have the best O-line in the league. They have a top 5 receiver in the league. They have a top 5 number 2 receiver in the league. They have a top 7 tight end in the league and the best against man coverage. They have Saquon freaking Barkley. And they have a human truck at quarterback running the ball. So they shouldn't have to do too elaborate of scheming like, let's say, a Shanahan last year would have to accomplish because of the loss on the offensive line department, right? Or the loss at the receiver department on the outside. This is probably going to be more brute force from the Eagles, and they should be able to have success that way. But I will also say, if they find themselves in this game, especially early, not being able to run the ball as well as people would think, and getting into second and third and longs, that's where the Chiefs can take it to the Eagles, because that's their advantage. Because I do think that the scheme, the pressure, the blitz of Spagnuolo will get to Hurts more often than not, because I don't trust Hurts mentally to be able to process it and to be able to get through it and to be able to win that way. I just don't trust him in that facet of the game. So the Eagles are going to have to avoid that as best as possible. Okay, so that's that side of the football. Pretty in-depth breakdown. You guys let me know what you think. Who has the advantage on offense? The Philadelphia offense or the Chiefs defense? Let me know between the matchups on the outside, the matchups up front. I do think the Eagles will be able to score. It's just a matter of how quickly will they score? How will the Chiefs play them? So that is it a lot of explosive plays, or is it more so a matriculation of offense? Is it like, okay, we're going to go on long drives and try to kill the clock? Are they going to be run heavy? Are they able to run the ball as successfully as we would think? There are some counteracting kind of statistics between both sides of the ball. Thank you guys so far for watching. Don't forget to Gronk spike the like button as we move to the other side of the football. So this, to me, is the more fascinating side of the ball in Super Bowl 59. It is the Kansas City Chiefs offense versus the Philadelphia Eagles defense. And boy, do I have a great load of statistics and graphics for you guys. Okay, it's Patrick Mahomes versus Vic Fangio. It's Andy Reid versus Fangio. It's Mahomes versus the best defense, in my opinion, in the NFL. Okay, let's look at the tail of the tape when it comes to the Eagles defense and the Chiefs offense. All right. So the Chiefs in yards per play were pretty pedestrian at 22nd in the NFL this season. They were 13th running the ball. They were 8th throwing the ball, and their points per drive, still a top 10 offense at 10th. For the Eagles, they were 1st in yards per play. We'll get to an interesting statistic specifically about yards per play here in a little bit, but 1st at 4.8 yards per play allowed this season. They were 2nd in rush EPA, they were 3rd in pass EPA, and they were 2nd in points per drive. Pretty much across the board, they were a dominant defense. They did not have a weakness. Pass game or run game, no real weakness. Their starters are pretty much intact outside of Nakobe Dean, who did get injured during their playoff run. The Chiefs are coming off their highest scoring game of the season, where they did put up 30-plus points. The Eagles did have the best defense in the league in success rate, in also 2nd in pass defense success rate. Now, the statistic that I was referring to when it comes to yards per play is that ever since week 5, when the Eagles made the switch to Cooper DeJean at the nickel back position, the Eagles have the best defense in yards per play in the next-gen era, period. 4.2 yards per play allowed is the lowest since, I believe, 2016, when the next-gen era began, okay, on or NFL, whatever they do with that. But that is the measure, okay? So Cooper DeJean became the starter in week 5-ish. They play the 2nd highest rate of nickel defense, meaning 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, 3 cornerbacks, and 2 safeties. 5 defensive backs, okay? That's basically what nickel means, 5 defensive backs, okay? So nickel is the Eagles' thing, and the Eagles don't really change when it comes to their defensive, formula. They rush 4, they play too high, and they play nickel, like, all the time. They don't really change. It's kind of like how the Seahawks used to be. We're so good at this, you're going to have to find a way to beat us. We're going to play very sound. We're going to have a little bit of creativity in our coverages. We might throw a little bit of different flares at you in terms of like, okay, rotations and sim pressures and things like that. But we're going to play nickel. We're going to rush 4, and we're going to play coverage. And that's what we're going to do the entire game. And you can't beat it, so it doesn't matter. Now, a key factor in whether or not the Chiefs will be able to beat it is the history between Vic Fangio and Patrick Mahomes. And you guys might have heard this before, but Patrick Mahomes is 8-0 against Vic Fangio-led teams. That being said, we're going to dive deeper into this because Vic Fangio never had a quarterback and has never really had an offense to support him against the Chiefs. So just the win-loss record itself is not very handy in this discussion because Denver and Miami offenses scored 6 points, 3 points, 16 points, 16 points, 9 points, 14 points, 7 points, and only 24 was the highest. So only one game of 20 plus points, and every other game was 16 or less. So yeah, Fangio has lost 8 times, but a lot of that is because he hasn't had a quarterback or he hasn't had an offense. This has included Miami last year and Denver in previous seasons when he was the head coach, okay? So let's dive a little bit deeper into these statistics of Fangio and Patrick Mahomes. Now, these are the last 4 games, okay? The last 4 games. Fangio has done a really good job against Mahomes. This includes 2 games last year in Miami, one of the games in the playoffs where Fangio was missing a lot of his personnel, and then the games in Denver, okay? So 225 yards per game, under a 60% completion, 85 for 144, not 85 for 44. That's a mistake on the graphic. 59%. Touchdown to interception ratio was 5 touchdowns to only 1 pick. Still pretty solid. Overall, it's 10-2. And points, 76 in those matchups, offensively speaking. Okay, actually, there was 3 defensive touchdowns scored by Patrick Mahomes' teams in these 4 games, which is pretty insane. But 76 points, 19 points per game for the offense. Under 20 points, under a 60% completion, and only 225 yards per game in the last 4 meetings between Fangio and Mahomes on 2 different teams, which I do think is a little bit of a factor. Okay, now diving a little bit deeper into that, I've just noticed a trend, okay? So the Chiefs overall in those 8 games scored 21.6 offensive points per game. So more than 19, 21.6, still not great. His career average is 28, okay? So 21.6. The last 5 games, he has under a 60% completion. A lot of incompletions is something that I've noticed against Fangio. Mahomes tends to throw more incompletions. He's been held under 300 yards in all of the last 4 games against Fangio defenses. He averages only 1.25 touchdowns per game against Fangio and only a 6.5 yards per attempt in the last 4 games. Okay. Overall, 10-2 touchdown interception, 8-0 record, which is impressive. But when you dive deeper, it's not exactly the best offensive production that we've seen from Patrick Mahomes, especially when you compare it to other defenses that he's played. That's for sure. Okay. Now, one of the interesting things about last year's meeting between Fangio and Mahomes is that Mahomes faced 0 blitz from Fangio 18 times in the playoff game. 18 times. It forced 4 throwaways, and it actually worked a pretty good amount in that game. But that was due to Miami's personnel. They were missing like 3 edge rushers in the game, multiple defensive linemen. They had a lot of injuries. So Fangio was forced to blitz a lot in that game and not do what he typically does, which is blitz at only a 16% rate in these playoffs and 19% in the regular season. Fangio tends to rush 4. But it would be interesting to see if he occasionally in this game does blitz on 3rd down because of the fact that, you know, he did that a lot in the playoffs last year, and it actually had a little bit of success because what he basically said last year was, we've got Jalen Ramsey, we've got a pretty good secondary, you know, Javon Holland, like we've got some guys in the back end that can cover. Let's play to our strength of our defense. Let's try to cover the Chiefs, and let's just blitz the daylights out of them and try to get some stops and some big plays that way in the cold. And It worked a little bit. It did backfire a little bit, but the occasional blitz in this game could be handy because the Eagles do have very good corners and a very good secondary, and they're able to play man coverage. So if they do zero blitz, I could see it happening a few times. Another thing that's really interesting against the Chiefs is the Chiefs like to motion a lot. They're the 6th highest rate of motion in the NFL. The Eagles are the best defense in the league against motion in yards per play and QBR. Their communication is second to none in the NFL in their secondary, which is why I think they're so good. Okay, so I don't expect the Eagles to kind of stray from what they do too often, but I think there could be some curveballs of some sim pressures, some zero blitzes, some occasional man coverage reps, and I do often think that they'll have 4-man rush in 2 deep. That's probably how they're going to play a lot of the time, but I do think that they're going to mix some things up, especially with 2 weeks to prepare, with the amount of knowledge, the amount of games, the amount of tape that Fangio has of Mahomes playing against his defense. He's going to be able to pick some things that he likes and he doesn't like, especially with the most talented defense he's ever had. So it's going to be up to the Chiefs to counteract that and to be able to find the weaknesses of the Eagles. Now, one thing that I do expect is that Mahomes will throw the ball a lot in this game, because the last 3 times he's played Fangio, he has thrown the ball 40 plus times in every single game. So I expect the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, they're going to throw the ball a lot, I would expect. Although I think they could have maybe a little bit more success running the ball than people think, but we'll get to that a little bit later. He also tends to throw the ball a lot in the Super Bowl, 40 times, the last 3 times they played in the Super Bowl. Oh, wait, not the last 3 times, but 3 times overall. So they've played in how many Super Bowls? They've played in 4, okay? So 75% of the time, he has thrown 40 times in a game. He threw 40 times against the Niners the first time. He threw 40 times in the loss to the Bucs. He threw 40 times in the win against the Niners. Now, one of them was overtime. One of them was a blowout where they lost. One of them was a comeback. So you can understand why they threw 40 times. They didn't throw 40 times against the Eagles last time, but that was a lot because the Eagles defense, if you look back at the 22 Eagles, they were clearly worse against the run than the pass. If you look at them statistically, they were like 22nd against the run and they were first against the pass. So there was like a clear deficiency in their defense that the Chiefs tried to exploit, and they did. Okay. One of the key things that's also huge for Fangio and his defense is making Patrick Mahomes hold the ball. Okay. This is their best chance to win, as it is for any team in the NFL. The Chiefs are 19-15 in games where Mahomes holds the ball on average of 3 seconds per play. In the game in which they lost this year, Week 11 against Buffalo, Mahomes held the ball 3.35 seconds on average. That was the highest average of the season and the only loss of the season. So basically, the key to the game is, can the Eagles tighten up in coverage, make Mahomes not go to his first read as often as possible, look to his second or his third, make him hold the ball so that the pressure gets home and forces him to throw it away, forces him to take a sack, forces him to make a mistake, okay? Because that's how the Bills beat them. That's how teams have beat them in the past. Force Mahomes to ad-lib, as crazy as that sounds, okay? That's actually the facts of the matter. And I think that is because Andy Reid, you don't want Andy Reid to beat you. You want these receivers to beat you. You want Mahomes to have to make plays that aren't already open, okay? You don't want the offensive scheme to beat you. That being said, Mahomes has won 90% of his games when he throws the ball under 3 seconds. He has also not held the ball longer than 2.65 seconds in the last 4 games at all, okay? So getting the ball out quick has been the key to the Chiefs' success on offense lately. The Eagles, though, allow quarterbacks to get the ball out at a pretty fast rate of 2.7. That's the 3rd fastest in the NFL, and I think that's because they don't blitz a lot. So when you blitz more, I think that means the ball comes out faster, and I think if you what am I trying to say? So I think it's because, like, the coverage. So because it's a 2-deep defense and a 4-man rush, I think oftentimes quarterbacks can complete passes, but they don't go for a lot of yards. As we know, the Eagles have the best defense in yards per play defensively, and also success rate in the pass game. So A lot of the plays are not successful, but they still get the ball out fast. Okay, so it's a matter of making those plays successful for Mahomes. In terms of the pass rush, okay, there's a lot of different matchups for the pass rush. The interior rush of the Eagles is the best in the NFL. They are first in PFF grade, they are second in pressure percentage, and they are first in win rate. Okay, Jalen Carter and Milton Williams are keys to this game. Jalen Carter leads the playoffs with 20 pressures. That's 9 more than second place. Milton Williams is the second graded pass rushing defensive tackle in the NFL this year. He is also 18th overall for PFF. So second best pass rushing grade, only behind Chris Jones. He also has 10 pressures in the playoffs, which is tied for the second most, tied with Chris Jones. Milton Williams will be a key, an X factor against not Frank Caliendo, but Mike Caliendo. Caliendo allowed a sack and 10 pressures against Buffalo. Oliver had 2 hits, and Phillips had a sack as well for the Bills. Those players can be disruptive, and if you have interior pressure, it allows you to contain the pocket and not allow Mahomes to escape and run if you can get consistent interior pressure. So when you're watching the game, try to see which direction Creed Humphrey is turning his head. Is he often doubling Jalen Carter? Or are the Eagles finding ways to get Carter one-on-one at times? I don't think that will happen very often because I think the Chiefs will try to take him out of the game. But will Milton Williams work one-on-one against Caliendo and, have Carter eat up the 2 best interior linemen, which would be Smith and would be Creed Humphrey? Or do the Chiefs take their chances with having Jalen Carter one-on-one with Caliendo, or one-on-one with Trey Smith at times? What if they double Milton Williams with Caliendo and Creed Humphrey to the left, let's say, and they leave Carter one-on-one with Trey Smith because Trey Smith's going to get paid? So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But both players can get to the quarterback, both are disruptive, and both can sack the quarterback. Nolan Smith has also been incredible in the playoffs. 15 pressures and 4 sacks in the playoffs. He has played 150 of his 178 snaps on the left side of the line, which is where Mahomes often runs. Nolan Smith, if you want to check his 40 time, I want to say he ran a 4.4 40 out of the draft from Georgia. He was extremely fast. So not only can he rush the quarterback and get pressure, but he can also track you down and get you in space. So it wouldn't be surprising if he tracked down Mahomes a couple of times because of how fast he is. It'll be interesting to see how Fangio utilizes him in terms of maybe spying occasionally, or even, looping on blitzes, or if they ask him to be overly aggressive rushing the quarterback, because if he does get over aggressive and runs past Mahomes, that might be where the lanes open up for Mahomes to get pressure. I don't see Sweat being a huge factor here because he'll majority of the time be lined up against Tooney. But if he could beat Tooney, who has moved to tackle, that would obviously help. But Joe Tooney has moved to tackle, and the interesting thing is about the Chiefs' offensive line is they've moved from the best interior blocking line in the league with Joe Tooney, like number 1 in grade and number 1 just objectively, to the 19th best interior pass blocking unit. And we just talked about Carter and Williams' ability to get pressure. So Fangio, I don't expect too many splies. I expect a few blitzes. I expect a lot of 4-man rush. And I expect maybe some stunts and things to try to get one-on-ones with advantageous matchups. But I do expect the Eagles, if Mahomes holds the ball, to get pressure. But it's all up to him holding the ball or not. And that comes down to the decision-making for the Chiefs, to their play calling, what they're looking to do in the passing game, their running game, their down and distance, and a lot of different things. All right? So then we get to, okay, what are the Chiefs trying to do with the quick game? Because that's kind of their entire offense. And guys, if you haven't already, Gronk spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more NFL content just like this. Continuing to break down Chiefs offense, Eagles defense. The quick game. Patrick Mahomes has targeted receivers behind the line of scrimmage at a career high 27% this season. Okay? resulting in 851 passing yards, which was the second most in the NFL, only behind Baker Mayfield, and a league-high 45 first downs. That is a stat from Next Gen, okay? He has accounted for 5 of the top 6 seasons since 2016 in passing yards behind the line of scrimmage. And when you go deeper than that, the Chiefs have only thrown 7 completions past 10 yards in the playoffs. Okay? 7. That's it. Mahomes has had 26% of his passes be completed beyond 20 yards, which is the worst in the NFL. So from a statistical standpoint, the Chiefs are the best quick game offense in the league, the best screen offense in the league, the best RPO offense in the league, but the worst vertical offense in the league. Okay? When we compare that to the Eagles defense, the Eagles defense has allowed the fewest yards per attempt and the lowest success rate on passes thrown behind the line of scrimmage. In part because of Cooper DeJean, in part because of, I think, Zach Bond, I think because of the speed of guys like Nolan Smith, and I think because of how well they communicate and seemingly they tackle. But it's a strength for strength. Like, the Eagles have allowed the lowest yak over expected from any secondary in the league, while Kansas City is more reliant on yak than any offense in the league. They're more reliant, 61.5 receiving yards after the catch. Okay? This is going to be interesting because how do the Chiefs go about this? I think that you're going to see a variety. I think you're going to see run, balance. I think you're going to see play action quite a bit in order to get some shots down the field and to try to take some strategic shots down the field off of play action. I think you're going to see moving the pocket quite a bit from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes to try to kind of get this D-line a little bit off. I think you're going to see quite a bit of drop back and option routes over the middle of the field by guys like Juju, Kelsey, Noah Gray, DeAndre Hopkins potentially. And I think that is going to be their quick game. I don't know how much they're going to flat out screen because of how successful the Eagles are against it, but I would expect some reverses. I'd expect the typical Chiefs sort of stuff, but I don't know how much that's going to be successful, just driven by the statistics here. I do expect Juju to have a good game. I actually think he's low-key like a really kind of X-Factor type player. I would expect Marquise Brown to not have a great game, just based on his overall archetype. I'd expect maybe Diop to make a few plays, but the tight ends are going to be critical because the personnel package of the Eagles playing a lot of 5 defensive backs, being lighter against the run, having a lot of light boxes, is probably going to allow the Chiefs to play a lot of 2 tight end formations to get some size on the field, potentially to be able to run the ball, and to use Noah Gray and Travis Kelsey as short to intermediate options in the passing game. Now, the Eagles have allowed the lowest yards per catch to tight ends. Again, another statistic they lead the NFL in. Who's surprised? Not me. I mean, just an incredible defense. They allow nothing, essentially. But you've got Kelsey and Gray. And the one player I think they might be able to pick on is Burks, who is a backup. Nakobe Dean has been the starter. Burks filled in as the backup. That being said, I looked deeper into Burks to see if he's been playing well or poorly, and he actually has the most pass play stops in the playoffs among all linebackers. And pass play stops is a statistic from PFF, which indicates a negative play for the offense. So actually, he's played really well, and he has a 74 coverage grade. But that being said, he was terrible in the Super Bowl last year, and the Chiefs played him last year in the Super Bowl for the 49ers, and he was not good. And he had to replace Dre Greenlaw. Also, we've seen Zach Ertz go off against his defense. 16 targets, 11 catches, 104 yards. The ageless wonder. Can Kelsey do something similar? Tyler Higbee also had a touchdown, 54 yards and 7 catches on 10 targets. So perhaps their tight end is a possibility here if you can find ways to scheme it up and find the one-on-one matchups with their linebackers or their safeties. That could be an avenue for the Chiefs. I'd expect Noah Gray to be quite involved with like 3 or 4 catches. I'd expect Kelsey to get, 5 to 7 catches, something like that. Cooper DeJean could also be pretty important in this area. Do the Eagles look to put him in certain situations one-on-one with Kelsey? Because I think if they do, that's their best matchup. I think he can hold Kelsey, but especially at this age. But that would mean that they maybe have to put another corner on the field. That might mean that they throw Chauncey Gardner-Johnson or CJ or whatever his name is now. Maybe they throw him in the nickel occasionally and have him play against a receiver. That is going to, if they put DeJean a lot on the tight end, that's going to change the matchups and the math. So I'm not sure how much they'll be able to do that, but we'll see. Maybe when they do blitz or they do play a little bit of man, that could be the matchup to watch. Now, the Chiefs' run game versus the Eagles' run defense is where we're going to finish on this side of the football. The Eagles have only allowed 2 players from the quarterback position to run for over 30.5 rushing yards this year. I bring up 30.5 because that's the prop that a lot of people are going to bet over for Patrick Mahomes. But only Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels have rushed for over 30.5 rushing yards at the quarterback position. Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels, the 2 best runners at the quarterback position in the NFL. Okay, so I wouldn't expect too much success from Mahomes. Maybe an occasional scramble, but I don't really think that he's going to go off here necessarily. Probably not as productive as he was in that first Super Bowl matchup. Now, when it comes to the run in particular, I think there could be some success for the Chiefs because they don't get stuffed a lot. They're the second lowest rate of being stuffed at the line of scrimmage against light boxes. The Eagles do run light boxes, 6 or fewer defenders at 68.5%, nearly 70%. That's 10% higher than any team in the NFL. So the Eagles are daring you to run the ball against their stud defensive line. They're asking you and pleading to you, please run the ball. The Chiefs' ability to do that or not is going to make or break this game. And is going, honestly, unless, they have to find some success running the ball. Because if not, Mahomes is going to have to throw the ball 50 times, and he's going to have to throw the ball really accurately, really successfully, probably a ton short and underneath, and have to be very, very, very good, very, very consistently. And these receivers are going to have to be on their game. Because the run game, you're going to have to run it. Like the Chiefs' ability to win Super Bowl 57, they were able to run the ball. They had 13 carries for 89 yards against light boxes in that game. And that was Gannon's defense that's based around Fangio's defense, but still, they were able to run the ball. Remember, Mahomes did not have 200 yards in Super Bowl 57. Guys, he didn't even have 200 yards. They ran the ball. They had 15 carries for 76 yards and 5.1 yards per carry for Pacheco. McKinnon had 8.5 yards per carry on 4 rushes, and Mahomes also had 44 yards. But the Chiefs' run game has only 3.5 yards per carry since Joe Thuney moved to left tackle. So they've been running the ball worse. I thought they ran the ball well against Buffalo, but Buffalo is much worse against the run than the Eagles. So can the Chiefs from 2 tight end formations get a little bit of power? Can they get under center a little bit and run the ball? Because that's something we saw with the Rams. They were able to run the ball that way kind of effectively. The Commanders weren't really able to run the ball against the Eagles all that well. But can they find just enough success to avoid the second and the third and longs, just as we spoke about with the Eagles offense? I think the Chiefs' run game is a huge X factor, not only to move the ball, but also to kill the clock and take the Eagles out of their ball possession game, which is what they want to be and what they want to do. Okay, so those are both sides of football, guys. That is Chiefs offense, Eagles defense. I think the Eagles defense has the advantage in a majority of these areas. I think in terms of drop back pass, I think they have the advantage. I think in terms of run, that is where I would say it's a little even. The Eagles are favored in terms of statistically. I do think, though, the Chiefs, in order to move the ball and score a lot of points, the Chiefs are going to have to, Mahomes is going to have to throw 40 times, and Mahomes is going to have to be very precise. Think Tom Brady versus the Legion of Boom, Super Bowl 49. A lot of razor cuts, a lot of underneath passes, and that's going to how they're going to be able to matriculate. And this is going to have to be on the back of a great game plan and a great play calling day for Andy Reid. And they're also, to avoid the pass rush, going to have to get the ball out fast. If the Chiefs get the ball out fast, they have more success. They win more often, 90%. If the Eagles make them hold it, you're going to know early in the game, that's where the Eagles can win this game. If they make Mahomes hold the ball and they're able to stop the run out of light boxes. It's pretty key. It's pretty easy. Situationally, this is like both sides of the football. Just breaking down the stats. The Chiefs are second on third down this year offensively. The Eagles are third defensively. The Chiefs are 26th defensively, while the Eagles are 10th offensively, okay? So Eagles have the advantage on their defensive side. Chiefs have the advantage on their offensive side just slightly. The fourth down, the Chiefs are fourth on offensive fourth downs, and the Eagles are third. This might be actually reversed. This might be my bad. I might have to flip this. I think it's actually Eagles are 4th and 23rd, and the Chiefs are 3rd and 9th. That's my bad. So the Chiefs are actually better on fourth down, believe it or not. Their defense is definitely better. The Eagles have struggled on fourth down more often. They're only 23rd. Red zone, this is correct. 22nd offensively for the Chiefs, 13th for the Eagles, 8th for the defense for the Chiefs, 5th for the Eagles, and then for starting position, special teams wise, the Chiefs are 15th on offensive starting position, average, and 12th for their defense. The Eagles' offense has much better field position and the best in the game at 6th, and then 20th defensively. Their defense is put at a disadvantage more often. So, those are the stat breakdowns. Pretty much everything. Now it's on to the prediction, guys. It's on to the prediction. So, in terms of the game, I feel like, honestly, when you break this down objectively, as we just did, very much statistically based, there's very few areas that the Philadelphia Eagles do not have an advantage over the Kansas City Chiefs. From a breakdown of the rosters, to a breakdown of the stats, to the strength versus strength matchups, to the one-on-one matchups, a majority of these areas favor the Eagles. And honestly, we could look back at this game and say, like, what were we all thinking? The Eagles had one of the best offensive lines of all time. The Eagles have one of the best defenses in recent history. The Eagles have the best player in the league. The Eagles are the best roster in the league. The Eagles have Vic Fangio, defensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, an offensive coordinator who could become a head coach. Like, what were we thinking? The Eagles were clearly better. What were we talking about? What were we thinking? At the same time, the Chiefs have the better quarterback. The Chiefs have the better overall coaching staff and the better head coach, without a doubt. Okay? They've also had 2 weeks to prepare, which is a huge advantage for an experienced Super Bowl team. And the Chiefs are the best team that I've probably ever seen in close games. They have won 17 consecutive close games. They have the better kicker. That's a small thing, but perhaps a big thing in a game like this. Okay? And I think for the Chiefs, it comes down to, can their style of offense, being patient, matriculating the ball through the passing game, having a little bit of balance, having a great game plan, knowing the players to attack, the areas to attack, the key downs, third down. Can their offense make more plays? Can their defense make more stops on drop-back passing situations? Red zone. Can they have those key ingredient plays that the Eagles maybe don't? Fourth down. Can the Chiefs extend drives? Right? Does Mahomes have the answers? And does Reed have the plan against Fangio? And on the other side, I think it comes down to, does Spags set up the Chiefs' run defense well enough to put himself in position to get after Jalen Hurts? Because if they can get after Jalen Hurts, disrupt Jalen Hurts, confuse Jalen Hurts, they should be able to win. They should be able to get stops, even if Saquon is as good as he is. But if the Eagles run the ball, if the Eagles have one-on-ones and they win those one-on-ones, if the Chiefs are not able to block the Eagles, the Chiefs are not going to win. It's that simple. So at the end of the day, I'm not picking against the Chiefs, guys. I'm not doing it in this game. I don't care. I broke it down. I told you all the areas where the Eagles are better. I told you all the areas where the Eagles can win this game. I have picked against the Chiefs more than any living, breathing human in existence. But I will not pick against them in this game because ultimately, I do think it will be a close game. I do. So, I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes to win Super Bowl MVP. Because like I said, in order for the Chiefs to win, I think they're going to have to throw it a lot short. I think it's going to be on the arm of Mahomes. I think they might trail in this game. So they're going to have to come back at some point, I do believe. And I think it's going to be on Mahomes and his brain to be able to get this one done. Okay? And maybe a little bit of elusiveness to avoid the pass rush at times. So I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes as the MVP. I think that's the most obvious pick. If the Eagles win, my pick would be Saquon Barkley. I'm hopeful for Saquon Barkley. I'm hopeful for the Eagles. All right? My official pick and prediction for the score will be 24-23 with the Chiefs winning with a last second drive for a field goal from Harrison Butker. We'll call it 49 yards away. Butker puts it through to win the game. 24-23. I think it will be relatively lower scoring. I think both defenses will play well. I think both offenses will matriculate the ball. I think there will be explosiveness from the Eagles occasionally, but I think there'll also be drives where both offenses stall out and don't find any success. Okay? So I lean towards the defenses in this game. Spags and Fangio are better than the OCs. And I think the Chiefs' offense has a lot of deficiencies, and the Eagles' deficiency is at the quarterback position, in my opinion. Now, that being said, I think if the Eagles win this game, I think they win by double digits. I think they win by 2 scores. You know, something like 30-20, 31-17, 34-20. I could see them winning by 2 touchdowns. Based on the breakdown of this game, that very well could happen, and it could be a bit shocking to the system. But that would be the outcome for the Eagles. And I think it would come by Saquon closing the game late and the Chiefs simply having not enough time to score. Something like the Bills game, right? Where it was a 1-score game. The Eagles had the ball, or the Bills had the ball. The Bills drove down and scored to make it a 2-score game in the regular season. And the Chiefs just didn't have enough time. That could be how the Eagles win in this game. Right? They get a lead, they close it with their running game. But yeah, I'm gonna pick the Chiefs. I'm gonna pick the Chiefs. I'm just whatever. Call it whatever you want. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this preview of Super Bowl 59. Gronk spiked the like button. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to the new members. Goat Braden, Justin Carpenter. Yes, sir. Jake Hedge. Shout out to Big Al for 5 gifted members. Guys, Gronk spike the like button. It really helps the video out. Make sure to check out all the other content on the channel, man. Shout out to Ryan as well, who got gifted a membership. Thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. A lot more coming. BLV versus Consensus for members on Patreon. All of my bets for Super Bowl 59. Link in the description. And also, guys, my Owner's Box prop pick breakdown, where I talked about all of my favorite props, 14 player props. That link is also in the description. I'll put it at the pinned comment as well. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.